which is part of my background. And so he asked me to come out this morning, so I thought I would. So he sends all the presenters some notes on what we're supposed to talk about and things like that, and so I'll run through some of that stuff with you. I'm going to go a bit out of order, however. I put together a little PowerPoint and stuff, and I'll show you that. And mostly what we're going to do is watch videos, if that's all right. So this is me. That's the name of my company is Olson Creative and Sports. I spent a long time working for the Rangers and Stars, and then about 5-6 years ago I decided that I wanted to go out on my own. And I felt like there was a niche in the marketplace that I could fill. I'd advanced probably about as far as I was going to at the Rangers, and so I decided to do this. And so if you want to hit the next slide there, Leon. So one of the things that I saw was that the world needs content. The sports world has always been a huge provider of content. If you think about it, there's something happening in sports every day. Every day there is something to be written about or shot on video or something like that. And it's always been that way. Every day the newspaper had a sports section. Every day the newscast had a sports segment. What I saw, or at least what I thought I saw in the industry, was that the world is getting to the point where everybody is like that. It used to be, sports had an access to news channels. Now everybody does. Everybody has their own channels that they own. They have a Facebook page. They have a YouTube channel. They have a website. They have stuff like that. So that was one of the things that I felt like I saw when I went out on my own. And so sure enough, since I've gone out, I've done a lot of sports work. I was counting up the other day the number of sports I've worked on since I left the Rangers, and it's over a dozen different sports. Random stuff I would never have thought I'd be working on, like golf and skiing and stuff like that. But I also ended up getting a lot of other sports work. One of the things that kept me really busy last year was finishing up a documentary film about the rebuilding of the schools down in West Texas. After a fertilizer plant had exploded down there in 2013, it destroyed a lot of the schools, and they had to rebuild them, and there was a lot of drama and things like that. It actually ended up being a sports story too, because their baseball team won back-to-back state titles, and their softball team won a state title as well, and so there was a lot of, that factored into the storytelling, the resilience. But what I found is that there's so many different things that meld today. It used to be if you worked for a TV station, you worked for a TV station and you made video, and that was where the video ended up, and that was it. Now it's certainly not that way. So, you want to hit the next one? So, what do? Do a lot of video making. Certainly that's one thing that is involved in the creative process. Writing, as Leon mentioned, I do write for the Fort Worth Weekly. I then repurpose that stuff on my own channels as well. And then I have clients that need writing done, whether it's website copy or press releases or whatever. So that ends up factoring in there. One of the things I've gotten into is developing ideas for shows and films, which I'm going to show you the next thing I'm working on here in a minute. And so that is probably where I eventually want to get to doing more of that. And because that's fun, that's big, and if you think about it, in the business of media and creative, the way to get to bigger dollars is for more people to see you. And so the broader you can make your work, the better, the more it's worth to people. Another thing that I've gotten into a lot is live event presentation. What kept me busy the last couple of weeks was a event, the Nancy Lieberman Charities Dream Ball was last Monday, and it was down at the Bomb Factory in Deep Ellum, which is a big concert venue. And so one of the niches I've also found is that, like everywhere else, live events have a lot more use for video and for different creative and things like that. And so that's something that I've started doing a lot of as well. So, all right, we're gonna watch a video. Yeah, I think it's the one right before that. There should be a video embedded here.
There it is.
And it's about 3 minutes. So I'm taking the millennial attention span and giving you guys credit here that you'll be able to watch a video that goes 3 minutes.
Let's see if it actually, for some reason,
Didn't want to play? Oh, dang, I wonder if it didn't copy over.
QuickTime not available, that's probably
I
why.
didn't want to play in QuickTime. Okay, no big deal. We'll come back to it if we get time. All right. I'll tell you about that. Yeah, tell you about that project later. All right, so to go in my background, I'm going to go a little bit in reverse. Instead of starting at the education, I'm going to go from the professional side of it. So, as noted, I met Leon when I worked for the Stars, because at the time, the Rangers, the Stars, and Mesquite Rodeo were all part of the same company. So, some of us had duties that were segmented into just one team. Some of us, like me, worked for all of them and did stuff. And so I did commercials and videos and things like that. We probably will not be able to watch this next video if we don't have QuickTime. Yeah.
It's there, but you can't. It's weird.
Oh, well. Go ahead and skip a couple there if you will then. All right. So that was what I did at the Rangers. I also worked at TV stations. I did an internship at Channel 5 when I was in college. I worked at Channel 11. Actually, my first job out of college was working in the mailroom at Channel 11. That was my first job. I sorted the mail. I know a lot about postage machines, or at least 1990s vintage postage machines. That is not something that actually is carried over into any other aspect of my life. But you know, you learn a lot of skills. You never know what's going to pay off. That was not really it. After I left Channel, I eventually moved up and worked in the marketing department. And one of the great things about Channel 11 at that time was it was very sports intensive. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to work there and why I was willing to take an entry-level job doing stuff that was not terribly exciting, was because I wanted to get involved in that. And I definitely made connections that I still have today. And I eventually got to work in the sports stuff. At the time, they carried the Rangers and the Mavericks. When the Stars moved to town, they carried the Stars and stuff like that. So I merchandised that into a job at KXTX, which was Channel 39, which is currently Telemundo, but at the time it was an English language TV station, and the Rangers broadcast and the Mavericks had moved over there. So I worked there. I did ad campaigns and stuff as well. At the same time, I was freelancing, doing play-by-play for the local cable TV station in Fort Worth. And so I did a lot of things like minor league hockey, minor league baseball, high school sports, D-League basketball when Fort Worth had a team. That was maybe the worst run franchise I've ever been a part of. Anyway, did a lot of that. So basically tried to keep my hand in a lot of things, and you never know what's going to lead to the next thing. And so it helps to be involved in a lot of different stuff. So backtracking. Before this, I was at Trinity University, which was, yeah, go ahead and hit the next one. So like I said, I'm going backwards a little bit, but there's a method to the madness. So I majored in communication, double majored in history. Mainly because I was interested in history and because I had 6 hours worth of AP credits that I may have so kind of put me a little further along the road. So while I was there, I continued to be interested in sports. That's a vintage photo of me playing softball. But of course, I also did lots of media stuff. They had a campus radio station there that I eventually was the station manager of, and I wrote a column for the newspaper. So basically, that was a really good opportunity to learn a lot of different things in the communication field, because I kind of figured out that I thought I wanted to go into some sort of sports communication. I hadn't really defined it as well as I'd like. I thought maybe I'd want to be an on-air talent, but I wasn't sure. So I explored a lot of things. The history major factor has actually come in really handy for me working on documentaries. I'd like to think I learned a lot of things about researching and stuff like that have paid off in doing that. And I was a minor in economics. And I mentioned that because one of the things you guys are thinking about is, you guys all like sports, that's why you're in here, yes? There are probably other things you like too. One of the things that I want you guys to think about is the big picture of your whole life. Okay? Because you guys right now are sort of plotting out a little bit of that. You're thinking you might go to college somewhere. You're exploring industries that you're interested in, one of which is sports, which is why you're here in this room today. And so one of the things you want to be thinking about is, how does this fit into my life? What are all of the things I want to do with my life? Not just sports, things like that. And so I bring it up in the context of economics, if you want to hit the next one, Leon.
Coming up.
Because one of the things you want to be thinking about is the world in general. And so every person in this class, when you get to college, take an economics class. Because economics teaches you how the world works. The world would be a lot better off if people truly understood how things like minimum wage, international trade, things like that actually work. And that's what economics teaches you. Having taken economics class has paid off for me in many, many ways. And I wasn't even an econ minor, or major. I was just a minor. I wasn't good enough at math, actually, to have been a major. But it pays off. So if you want to hit the next one there. So take econ, econ 101. I pulled that slide one time when I talked to a class at SMU. So it's an SMU class slide, but that's something to keep in mind. But my point is, when you're planning your classes, when you're planning what school you want to go to, when you're thinking about all of this, what you really want to have in mind is that bigger picture, that big world that's out there that you want to be. So there are probably things you guys like doing besides sports. Maybe some of you are in art or theater or dance, or maybe you love math. Maybe you are in some sort of scouting, any of that sort of stuff. What you've really got to think about is, what makes you happy? What do you like? And so for me, that was, when I was growing up, I loved sports. I played every sport I possibly could as often as I possibly could. I also really enjoyed the creative side of it. I like to write stories. I like to do things like that. And so what I eventually figured out was, if I could find a career where I could merge those two things that I really liked doing, that would be really good. I would be really happy with my career in a lot of ways in my life. And so it took me a while to figure that out. So if you guys can get a head start on that, that's exactly what you should do. If I had thought about putting the job together that I liked when I was in high school, now I look back and I think, duh, these are the things you like to do. Why didn't you think about putting them together? That's something that could be really useful for you. Really think about the things you like and how they come together. So, one of those things, if you want to go to the next slide, in high school. You guys are in high school now, and you guys are way ahead. You guys, if you guys are thinking about a career in sports, you guys are in an incredible position. I don't know if you guys realize how lucky you are to have somebody like Leon. This is a guy that's worked in sports, and so he knows stuff. He knows people, he knows things like that. That's all fine and good. But he's also very passionate about it. He also really wants to help you. I mean, he really wants you guys to benefit here. And so you've got all those resources to draw on, and you've got a program here that your school district has embraced. That's pretty awesome. When I was in high school, we had to make our own sports newsletter. And so I'm pretty old. This is 1985. We had, you guys, anybody here heard of a mimeograph machine?
That you use the roller?
Yes. It printed stuff in this goofy blue ink and things like that. And so my senior year, my buddies and I started a sports newspaper where we would write, the mascot of my high school was the Falcons. We would write about sports at our school. And I had the, whatever it was we played. So I had the basketball beat, and I had the tennis beat, and my buddy wrote about football or whatever. In fact, if you look here, you can see that my sister scored 18 points in a high school basketball game. She was pretty good. She was the better athlete of the family. But I did that. So my point is, there's lots of stuff you can do. So that was helpful to me. I learned about writing. I learned about getting things out on deadline. I learned about stuff like that. There are, I'm sure, plenty of things that you can be doing right now to be preparing you, learning those skills, getting experience, getting something to put on a PowerPoint when you're doing a presentation to try to get into college or get a job or whatever you're doing. Now, obviously, at this point, the Falcon tail is not something that I would probably make a great impression on a potential client, but you never know.
It's not on your resume?
I haven't found exactly the right spot for putting it there, but at some point. So that's, and so there's so much you can do. I mean, you just heard the mayor talking about the opportunities you guys have at some of the incredible facilities up here. That, that's remarkable. That's something that not very many people have. And so you've got the opportunity to take advantage of it. So, go ahead to the next slide. All right. So one of the things that you have to think about is what I was just saying about making yourself happy. Figuring out what it is that you want to do and what's the path you're going to get here. So when I went out on my own, Contact recommended this book, and it was a really useful book. And what it was about was figuring out whether entrepreneurialism was right for me, and about whether it was good for you, because it's not for everybody. We work lots of hours, we don't get benefits, we don't get paid vacation. There's lots of stuff about being an entrepreneur that is, kind of a pain in the butt. What this was is it laid out all the stuff about starting your own business, and it said, here's where the glamour is, and here's where it's not, mostly not. But what made the biggest impression on me about this book is it said, you've got to figure out where that fits into your life. What do you want out of your life? And I actually started taking notes while I was reading this book, and I made a list. I made a list of things that I wanted in my life as I was deciding whether I was going to quit my job and go out on my own, and figured out what that was. So, as you guys are thinking about what you're going to do, it's really probably a pretty good idea. Thinking about the things you want. What do you want? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go to grad school? What do you love? What are the sorts of things that you know for sure moving forward that you want in your life? How important is money? How important is it to have a yacht? Or is that not very important? And that there's no value judgment there. If you really, really want a yacht, I want you to have one. This guy wants a yacht. No. Yeah. So, and of course I recommend reading this book as well, but that was one of the big takeaways, was thinking about that. All right, you want to hit the next one early on?
Yep.
All right, so one of the reasons you guys are in here is that you think one of the things that you want to do in your life is have sports involved. Yes? You want to have sports involved. So, a lot of people have sports involved in their lives. They are fans. And that is a very good thing to be. It's good to be a fan. Fans are good. In fact, for those of us that work in the sports industry, we really need fans. We really like passionate fans. In fact, I remember when I was at the Rangers, we would scratch our heads at how passionate some of the fans were, but we were still very grateful because all the things that they spent their hard-earned money on went to pay our salaries, so we were very pleased with that. We didn't understand why they had to have the same guy's autograph 10 times, and we're waiting in line at that event just like they'd been at the previous 9 events, but we were happy that they were. But there's a big difference between being a fan and going to the game when you want to, and checking out the websites in the morning and watching the games on TV, and working in the sports industry. So, these two photos are of playoff baseball. Exciting atmosphere. Globe Life Park in Arlington. AT&T Stadium or a park in San Francisco during the World Series. Awesome, incredible spectacles, yes? And working for the Rangers, I got to experience both of those. Both of those photos are from that. There's another thing we notice that these two photos have in common. What time of day are they taken? They are at night. When do games get played? They get played at night. Turns out games also get played a lot on the weekends. So one of the things you've got to think about is there's a big difference between being a sports fan and working in sports. Because sports is part of the entertainment industry. And if you're going to be part of the entertainment industry, when do people want to be entertained? When they're not working. So that means if they're going to go somewhere they're not working, and they're sort of the vast majority out there that work 9 to 5 jobs, that means they're going to go be entertained during the other time. So if you are working for an entertainment business, that means you've got to be prepared to be working when they want to play. So, one of the things that you've got to ask yourself when you're thinking about this, what do I want out of my life? What do I want to do for a career? How much do I love sports is? Can I handle that? Do I love it so much that I don't mind